Hey folks, it's Sam, and I'm live here in San Diego on Wednesday, March 30th at 5 p.m., talking about the current changes and craziness happening right now. I'm going to be talking about a lot of different things. Ukraine, the recent Will Smith, Chris Rock incident, court legal system, things that are going on. These are some pervasive themes. I'm going to be going through these slides here. Again, Ukraine, the Will Smith, both his victory and his, humiliating display that it's been embarrassing. We're going to, look at his chart. Also, things on the courts here in the U.S. as well, and perhaps some legal systems around the world. There's quite a lot going on. And also, not the least of which is also the new moon in Pisces, which is starting in a couple days. We're going to go over that. And of course, we're going to be looking at the charts here. This is the current chart. Well, this is the chart of March 30th of today. You can see we just had Venus just moved into Aquarius. We have these planets up here. We have the lunar nodes here. This is the sort of backdrop to all of the current craziness, you might say. And again, just before we get started here, just to make sure you know that I hope people will like and subscribe and share the video if you like these kind of updates and this kind of, detailed case studies and whatnot. You can, join my YouTube channel or Facebook pages or wherever you're watching this. Comment, like, subscribe, do all of that stuff, share it. Because, obviously that helps to keep the channel going. This is a free offering. I'm not getting paid for that. And speaking of that, if you also are interested in finding out and knowing more about the recent or the current transit of the lunar nodes. In fact, I just put the link in the comments here. And you can see that they're also at the bottom here where it says Rahu in Aries, Ketu in Libra for you and all 12 signs. You can click that link, go to that, and register for this free web class on the lunar nodes with Rahu in Aries, Ketu in Libra, because a lot of what I'm going to be talking about even today with these updates and whatnot, a lot of the craziness, first of all, we're seeing a lot of Rahu in Aries energy right now. Rahu in Aries, Ketu in Libra. Again, I did a whole update on that. This whole video, free web class is about that energy shift and what it means for you and all 12 signs. Again, because if you're a Capricorn, then Rahu is moving through your 4th house, Ketu through your 10th house. Very different than if you're a Leo, where Rahu is going through your 9th house, for example, through Aries, and Ketu through your 3rd house. And I also do some great case studies where I talk about the last time Rahu went through Aries, Ketu went through Libra. By the way, the last time that happened, there was a huge thing in Ukraine where they had one of the first big democratic elections in Ukraine. So again, these are very, very potent and poignant times, and this is all free for you to check out. So avail yourself of that. So before we get into these different parts of the current craziness, again, we're going to talk about the Ukraine situation. We're going to talk about the Will Smith had both a huge meltdown and a huge victory. That both happen at the same time. The height, this is an incredible kind of thing where you see someone at the pinnacle and the nadir and simultaneously a half hour away from each other. And then, of course, huge things in the courts here in the U.S., not just the first female African-American on the court, but also a lot of things going on with January 6th controversies with our attorney general, with scandals in the SDNY, Hunter Biden, Judge Clarence Thomas, his wife, all kinds of stuff going on with the courts. And this also dovetails into the new moon, which is happening on the end of, in a couple days. It's happening on the 31st, April 1st. So again, this is the current sky right now. So we'll just start an overview, because what those things have in common is this current sky, right? And so again, one of the big things that we're seeing now, there's a couple major, correlations. Of course, one of them is Rahu has just moved into Aries, and we're just starting to now really get set up there. Rahu is 29 degrees, so it's about 1 degree now in Aries, and Ketu like 1 degree in Libra, right? So again, it takes them a while to actually settle in, and once they hit about 1 degree, they're now pretty settled in to that sign. Before that, they're what's called Sandhi, or they're in transition. And again, so we could see now Rahu is pretty much set up in Aries, which is that fiery individuality. And again, the fiery individuality is in contrast to the Ketu in Libra, which is not the compromising energy, not the agreement. It's kind of pushing away the, no more Mr. Nice Guy thing, which would be the Ketu in Libra. I'm not about compromising and trying to make others happy. I'm now down with my own individuality and my own self-expression, which is Rahu in Aries. So again, that's really getting set up now in a very fierce way. Aries is a very fierce energy, and so is Rahu. So again, this is a prominent theme that's going to be going on for the next year and a half, right? And it just happened. So again, that free web class, you can see I describe the nature of that energy in great detail, and for each of the 12 signs. The other big thing is Saturn-Mars is coming together very closely here. They're a few degrees away now. As you see, Venus is separating more and more from Mars. But a few days ago, Venus and Mars were also joined together. When we do the case study of Will Smith, we have Will Smith's chart here. We're going to do a case study of his chart. This is his natal chart, and it's a good birth time. It's a confirmed birth time. So we have an accurate chart to work on, and this is the moment. This is the moment here when he lost it and got up and smacked Chris Rock, and then about a half hour, about 45 minutes later, he accepted the award and had the rambling speech where he was crying and all of that stuff. So again, we're going to compare and look at his chart, his dashas and whatnot. But this is the way the planets were when that happened. Like that night at that exact moment, you see Venus was joined Mars. Venus and Mars were still joined, and the moon was also right on Mars and Venus. So again, moon was just moving up to the exact conjunction with Mars, and Venus and Mars are still close. So this is where they are right now. Venus has now moved here, and the moon has moved on. But so Saturn and Mars coming together very close. Again, it shows a real power and discipline to fight for what we know is right. I said last week, I believe it was, that it could be quite dangerous for like the war and things like that, but that it also had the ability and the capacity to destroy the destroyers, to destroy the oppressors, right? So rather than give power to the oppressors, it can also destroy the oppressors. And by the way, we've seen where that's tended to play out, because remember, about a week and a half ago, we were still really very much on eggshells about, again, it was the height of the, Putin threatening, to use nukes and all kinds of stuff. Again, these things have backed off. So that whole situation has calmed down a little bit as Saturn and Mars have gotten closer. And I said that was very much a possibility. And again, it could also be explosive. I'm not taking credit, see how great I am. But I said, I know this is definitely a possibility. And I'm hoping that would be the result. And it seems to be, so far at least, getting closer to that. I also talked about things getting better, like Jupiter, Venus. And in the next few months, things getting, as these planets move on and move out of the Saturn-ruled signs, there being some more relief, so to speak. So anyway, this is the current situation right now. The biggest things, also these planets in Pisces, in particular, this debilitated Mercury. The Will Smith incident was way, way tinged by debilitated Mercury, just in general. Jokes, misunderstanding a joke, misinterpreting a joke, all of this, standing up and crying like that. I even use the example all the time. How clearly do you communicate when you're crying? I use this as an example of debilitated Mercury, or of Mercury in water signs. Again, how much sense do you make when you're crying? I use that as an example of debilitated Mercury. Or like when you're so devotional and then you try to explain why you're so devotional. doesn't work. You don't speak very clearly when you're emotional. So again, you can see that misinterpreting of a joke, getting fired up emotionally about it, doing something, communicating or, in a way and expressing yourself in a way that is confusing and in your own kind of fantasy world about it. Debilitated Mercury is all over that. Again, here is that chart of when that happened. Again, Sun Mercury up here in Pisces. And by the way, Mercury is also, it's pretty combust. It's 6 degrees combust. It's more combust now, actually. It's only 3 degrees combust. So it's moving pretty fast, but in this debilitated state. So we'll evaluate that a little bit more, but this is also a big feature of what we've been looking at, a lot of Pisces energy. So again, within the context of Rahu and Aries, Saturn, Mars, and Capricorn, we've also had a lot of this Pisces energy. I have to talk about all of it too, because the courts in Jupiter, again, I can't leave any of it out, because this Jupiter in Aquarius, again, all this stuff with the court, and particularly Jupiter's been throwing an aspect here recently, and it's going to get even closer onto Ketu in Libra. Libra is also a sign of justice and the courts. So is Jupiter. So there's so much going on with the legal system and the courts. Again, in the US especially, we see a lot going on with, we don't usually have the courts in the spotlight so much, but a lot of it now with the new Supreme Court justice. One of the Supreme Court justices' wives has been was really participating in the January 6th insurrection, which is unprecedented, and a few other things that we'll get to. So I'll just get to these slides though, because it's quite interesting. And I'm going to start with Ukraine and some of the things that have been happening. And again, I mentioned these things in Ukraine. The Ukraine army has been regaining ground, particularly outside of Kyiv and other places like that, even pushing back a little bit. Recently, we had, even official, Russian, messaging has been saying that, oh, we're not focusing on the whole country anymore. We're going to refocus on the west. I'm sorry, on the east. The Donbass region, and oh, it's that was always the plan and all. It's not. It wasn't always the plan. If that was always the plan, that's what they would have done. They've been getting beaten. They've been getting decimated. They've been losing soldiers. They've lost all this equipment, and they're having to regroup because they're getting it handed to them. And again, I made this prediction somewhat. I was very clear about the possibility here. It was also dangerous. Again, I'm not doing a victory lap because there's nothing to be victorious. There's no victory here. But I was saying that one of the things that was definitely possible because Mars exalted in Capricorn, where Saturn is also there, really shows an authentic victory, not just an impulsive, let's go in here and start blowing things up, which is an erratic use of Mars energy. It shows where, again, the victors and those who have will go to the ones who have been more strategic, more patient, more focused, and more and the better strategy will wind up winning. And that describes the Ukrainians much more than the Russians. And so, or those who are strategizing behind the scenes, even in Russia, like oligarchs and generals and people who are saying, this is madness. We don't want to do this. We're losing our standing in the world. We're losing in the war. We're losing our finances. And those to strategize and, again, destroy the destroyers. So, again, there's been major losses for Russia. The rhetoric of scaling back. And, again, this is face saving as much as anything. They're not going to say, well, since we've been getting our ass kicked in most places in the country and just firing dumb bombs all over the place, we're going to scale back. But also backing down from the nuclear threat. This has been very important. Over the weekend, the foreign minister, I don't remember his name, but the one who had come out and said before things like, well, I don't know, the nuclear option's on the table for Russian preservation, and, we never know. And this floating this threat constantly of nuclear war came out and said, no, there's no nuclear war unless we're under, grave attack. we wouldn't do it. Now, again, it's still just rhetoric, but it's important, very important rhetoric to hear that stuff dialed back. And by the way, I'm not a fan of politicians, but I give Biden credit because Biden he's handled this really quite well. And I think again, people gave him a hard time for coming out and saying this guy's got to go. He was speaking off the top of his head. Maybe it wasn't the best thing to say because now it sounds like he's talking about regime change or whatever. But again, bringing up that whole kind of question, I was starting to think, it's time that people start threatening Putin back a little bit. And maybe it was one of those things where having Trump, the loose cannon Trump, saying any kind of crazy thing, and you never know what the crazy man might do, it was a bit of a deterrent. There's no question. And Biden and the world being just too scared. Oh, God, what Putin might do. At some point, you got to start threatening him a little bit and saying, look, this guy's got to go. Even when Biden said it, I was like, you know what? That might not be a bad thing to do. Start saying a few things like, well, we better not use any nukes because we got nukes too, just to shut the guy up. But anyway, the point is, I don't like any of it. So aside from that part of it, it's good that to hear them officially backing off of this nuclear threat stuff that they'd been saying is good. So again, this is all part of the same thing because you see Saturn getting closer to Mars. A lot of people are saying, oh, this thing is going to really blow up now. I was saying, maybe not. Saturn is exalted in Capricorn because we don't do the rash, impulsive thing. I'm sorry, Mars is exalted in Capricorn because we don't do the rash, impulsive thing that blows everything to pieces. Again, I've already been saying, and mark my words, it's going to be more dangerous when we have Rahu Mars in Aries in the summer. I've said this the whole time. That's really the dangerous one to me. More dangerous than this because Capricorn Mars is more contained and Saturn is there. So we're seeing what I would predict to be the results of that. That's what we're seeing, right? I predicted exalted Mars in Cap could destroy the destroyers. It seems to be doing some of that. So with the Ukrainian situation, again, it seems to be at least not getting worse in that context. Now, of course, none of this is good. And to say it seems to not be getting worse, it could be getting worse. It could be. You could have these cities falling. You could have chemical weapons, it could have been getting worse. And it seems to not be getting worse, at least in that sense. So none of it is good, but at least in that context, the longer this goes on, the worse it gets for Russia and Putin. And the more pressure is going to be on them and the oligarchs and the people that are behind the scenes, the generals, the oligarchs, the citizens of Russia, and those who realize that this is going nowhere to make a change. So now the Will Smith meltdown, I'm going to just I'm going to read through these things. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit and we'll bring his chart up here. But again, I'm just going to talk about these things. I'll read through them and then show you in the chart. But the meltdown, again, we have his meltdown here and then we also have his victory because both happened within 45 minutes of each other. The most humiliating moment of his life. Again, at the time, it didn't look humiliating to him. He strutted off the stage. By the way, I just saw, it's not like I'm trying to keep up with every moment of this, but before this presentation, I was trying to find this picture. I was looking for a picture to put on the slide of him holding the Oscar. And I just Googled Will Smith and Oscar, and I could hardly even find a picture of him holding his Oscar. I tell you, every story is like, is Will Smith's career over? And it's just getting worse for him. Again, I think the day after or the day or two after, I think people were a little bit traumatized and a little bit in shock about like, wow, this really wasn't as bad as it seems. But as it goes on, people realize it's as bad. It's maybe worse than people had thought at first because you're getting so many people now coming out like this is that they're really angry about what happened. And by the way, when I was looking for this image and I saw one of the headlines was Will Smith was asked to leave. So he was asked to leave that night. That was just posted. I don't know. It wasn't that long ago. It was about a half hour before I started this. Because when I was looking for this image, the Motion Picture Academy or whatever the heck it's called updated their policy right now of what's going on or their disciplinary action or whatever. And he was actually asked to leave and refused to leave. So after he hit Chris Rock, he was asked to leave and he refused. Just found that out. But anyway, so these things happen within 45 minutes of each other. So again, it's going to be some pretty poignant things. So again, the transits, I already mentioned what a lot of them were, but it was a debilitated Mercury. We have Rahu in Aries, Mars, Moon, exact conjunction with Venus. So I'll pull up the chart here and pull up his chart. So this is the chart here. So I have this debilitated Mercury, right? Rahu just went into Aries, opposite Ketu in Libra. Again, Mercury debilitated. The sun is also there. And we have this big thing because it was Moon Mars was within a degree, right? So Moon Mars, people with Moon Mars conjunctions or Moon Mars in general, it's aggressive, it's frustrated, irritable. And that placement can lead to irritability. It's not the only thing, but definitely when the moon is going over Mars in the sky or whatever, it's very triggering, as you can imagine. And Venus and Saturn, so big stellium here in Capricorn. And so there was that. So again, Mars Moon exact conjunction with Venus. And then if you compare it to his chart, there's a Jupiter opposition, and then Saturn was exactly square to his natal moon and also other planets. So take a look. If you look at his chart, there was a Jupiter opposition in the sky to his natal Jupiter, and also Saturn by transit was exactly aspecting and squaring his natal moon and other planets. So this is what I'm talking about in the chart. This is how you do transit work. This is the chart of the moment, Jupiter 2613 of Aquarius, and it's his 10th house. So again, this is Jupiter in the 10th house, and it's opposite his Jupiter in Leo, 26 degrees. So it's exact opposition to his Jupiter in the 4th house at the moment that this happened. So again, this is his chart. So again, you apply these transits to this chart. This is his ascendant at 14 Taurus. Jupiter was going through his 10th house and these massive Raja Yogas in his 9th house. This shows you this is the night the man wins the Oscar. He wins an Oscar. So you're going to see this powerful transit, Saturn, Venus, Mars, Moon in his 9th house. Crazy Raja Yogas with Raja Yoga Karaka there, with the Lugna Lord, with the 7th Lord. Powerful in the 9th house of the most auspicious house in the chart. And Jupiter going through the 10th house, aspecting back to his natal chart, and Jupiter here. But also, again, the other thing I mentioned was this Saturn exact square and exact planetary aspect. His Saturn here, Saturn in the sky, 2730. His natal moon, 2740. Exact Saturn square. Again, it's a square in like Tajika astrology. Saturn is also squaring all these planets in the Tajika astrology or in regular transit work by sign, but exact square. But this is also Saturn's exact planetary aspect by transit. Exact 2730 Saturn in the sky, his moon 2743. So again, you see big things happen when Saturn moves into an aspect, especially an exact aspect. That's why people ask me, how important are exact degrees? You're seeing how important they are. You're seeing how important they are. By the way, not only is it Saturn in an exact aspect to his natal moon, but so is this Jupiter. This is another big principle. Jupiter 26 is aspecting his 9th house to Will Smith's moon in Libra. So Will Smith has his moon at 27 Libra. In the sky that night, Jupiter was 26 Aquarius. That's a 9th house aspect exact. And Saturn was 27. That's an exact 10th house aspect. These are two aspects. So when you get the two aspects of Saturn and Jupiter onto one point, it brings enormous concentration and inspiration. They were both happening that night. So this is really conferring a great moment. And you can see his Saturn is 27 and his Jupiter is 26. So any planet at 27, 26 of Libra is going to be getting that that dual Saturn-Jupiter aspect, and his moon is there, right? So, or I'm sorry, this was by transit, excuse me. By transit in the sky, Jupiter was 26 and Saturn was 27. So his moon at 27 Libra was getting the exact dual aspect of both Jupiter and Saturn. So again, this is very important transit work here. This is why you really look at aspects by transit as well. I've done a lot of work on this, and it's very overlooked, especially in Vedic astrology, where everything is done by looking at dashas, and astrologers hardly ever look at the transits, especially like this, and especially the aspects by transit, the special aspects, not just the oppositions, but the special aspects of the outer planets. So also, let me go back here. So also Ketu transit over his natal moon. Yes, absolutely. I'll look at that in a second. Yeah, so the Ketu aspect over his transiting natal moon. So again, Ketu by transit 29-23, his moon 27-43. So he's getting this Ketu aspect right over his natal moon, also in the 6th house. So again, 6th house moon, all these planets in the 6th house shows a lot of effort, struggle, and this Ketu going over there is really bringing it out. And so then when we look at his natal chart, we see this, you know, he was in Venus, Sun, Jupiter, Dasha, Sun ruling Jupiter, which is the 8th Lord in the 4th, and Mars, the 7th and 12th Lord in the 4th. And then the victory, we see it in this Venus, Sun, Jupiter, we see the massive Raja Yogas by transit in his 9th house, Jupiter in his 10th house, aspect in a natal moon like we just saw. So I just talked about those things there. By transit, you can see the massive Raja Yogas in the 9th house and Jupiter in the 10th house aspect in the natal moon as well. But we look at his dashas, Venus, Sun, Jupiter, and also in the D9 and the D10, you can really see it. Venus is the ruler of both. It's of Argotama in both the D9 and the D10. Of course, Venus, Sun, the Sun is in Leo in the D10, and then Jupiter, the tertiary level dasha. Jupiter's not ruling anything here in the D10. In the D9, though, it's in his 7th house. And again, many times you see the D9 also, which will show things like luck and, conferring of blessings and whatnot. But in the natal chart, we also see Venus, of course, as the ruler of the ascendant. Venus is also the ruler of Jupiter here in Purva Falguni. But especially Venus, Sun, Jupiter. Sun is ruling this it's actually not a Raja Yoga, but it's Mars, which is the 4th Lord. I'm sorry, Mars is the 7th Lord. But the Sun itself is a powerful Raja Yoga, and it's also forming one with Ketu, because the Sun is the 4th Lord in the 5th. And Ketu is in the 5th Lord with the 4th Lord, also forming a massive Raja Yoga here. And so even Venus Sun, the Sun is also ruling himself in his own nakshatra here and ruling this Mars Jupiter. But again, there's a lot going on. And what really shows the kind of shame and kind of disgrace here is the tertiary level ruler is Jupiter, which for Taurus is the 8th Lord. And it's a very destructive planet, because the 8th Lord is a destructive planet always. And for Taurus, again, Jupiter is a very destructive planet for sure, because it rules the 8th house. It's the 8th Lord in the 4th. Again, you see things here with a lot of emotional turbulence and things like that. Both the 8th Lord and the 12th Lord are in the 4th house, and whatnot. I just saw a thing, and I feel bad for Will Smith. I feel bad for the whole thing. I definitely feel bad for Chris Rock. I mean, it's just horrible. It's a sad thing to see all around. But and again, I don't know anything about these celebrities. I didn't know anything about Jada and his marriage, and apparently she talked about infidelity or something. I just found this out because I don't pay attention to celebrities. But I actually, again, when I was looking, I saw where recently, in fact, it was in October, Will Smith had confessed that he had thought about suicide. And not even that long ago, when his wife started talking about Will's inability to please her. And so, sexually and stuff like that. When there was a documentary in conjunction with his autobiography and all this stuff, and it's like, man, this is heavy stuff. This celebrity culture, this, again, I'm not trying to be mean, but the kind of narcissism around like celebrity culture and attention it's like an empty hole. And literally he was talking about how, and his kids were like crying, like it was a video, it was on camera of him doing something, I don't know, and he was telling his kids about how he contemplated suicide. His kids were crying or something when this thing came out about Jada having a conversation with, I don't know, some other celebrity about infidelity and not being able to be satisfied. I mean, who wants to hear all this stuff publicly? So again, it's just this weird celebrity culture. But I mean, frankly, I'm worried for the guy. This is a dangerous time because the sun is ruling this fourth house. He's in Venus, Sun, Jupiter, which again, you just saw this on the highest night of his life where he won the Academy Award. He also fell to the lowest depth. And again, you can see this debilitated Mercury here aspecting. This is the moment that it happened. It was a Virgo ascendant. This was when he slapped him, and then it was still Virgo ascendant when he gave the speech. And in the speech, he's apologizing to everyone except Chris Rock, and he's crying, and the stuff he was saying was just like, better to not even dissect it, because it's like, you know, God's has me here to protect my people, and, you know, love makes you do crazy things. I don't know. It's very dangerous looking. I mean, he looks like someone who is on the edge. And I hope he gets the help he needs. And, you know, I feel bad, especially bad for Chris Rock, because can you imagine being slapped in the face like that? Chris Rock just went on after that. I think, and by the way, some people say, well, what about Jada Pinkett or whatever, the joke? I honestly, if it was insensitive or whatever, you know, maybe he did. I don't think there's any proof he knew there was an illness. It was a throwaway quip. There's 100 things said worse. Even that night, there was a joke. There was a joke about their infidelity that another one of the comedians made. They were making a joke about their polyamory or something. Anyway, I don't know. But anyway, I don't want to spend the rest of the time on this, but I hope they recover. But you can see this in the transits, and particularly it's a good case study with him. Again, I could do a whole hour on this, but I don't feel like it because it's not that important to me. But I hope you were able to see some of the stuff that happened here with these transits, particularly, just to wrap up, he's a Taurus ascendant. So again, all of this is unfolding. He's in Venus Sun dasha. So the sun is a powerful planet. You know, the sun is also, you know, again, it's the ruler of this Raja Yoga here, the fifth lord and the fourth. Venus is also very powerful, ruling Mars. But these transits really, really jack it up. This Saturn, Venus, Mars, Moon in the 9th house, and then Jupiter in the 10th house. They're both aspecting his moon. So you can see why it was very like emotional and, you know, all of that. So, 1 second. So now we go on to the next thing here. So now, again, now we have some of these current shifts and changes that are coming up. We have, this part of what's going on too is big things with the courts right now. There are several major things with the courts. First, Black Supreme Court justice in the U.S. That's huge. And there was a Senate fight, which was pretty embarrassing for all concerned last week, at least in my opinion. But she's pretty almost certainly going to be confirmed, which that's really good. She's very qualified. But there's a lot of controversies in the courts, especially. So we have this positive thing, but then there's a lot of controversies. more and more they're finding just clear evidence that there was, actual crimes committed, even by perhaps Trump, certainly by people like Navarro and some of these other people. And what you're getting is people in Congress and whatnot chastising, like Merrick Garland and others in the Justice Department, saying, do your job and stand up for the rule of law, or else this stuff's going to happen again. This insurrection, there were clear crimes committed, and you're doing nothing. What, you're not going to do anything about it? So again, you're seeing this part of a controversy. January 6th. Also, we had some attorneys quitting in the Southern District of New York because, again, you have clear evidence that Trump's businesses and whatnot violated the law, but they won't prosecute. They won't do anything about it. Again, he's not the president anymore. He's a private citizen. If you or I broke the law, or, for example, if you or I did any of that stuff in January 6th, they're indicting all these regular people, but they're not indicting the ones that orchestrated it, that made the phone calls, that set the thing up, that set up the scheme to make phony electors and then run the Green Bay strategy or whatever it was called. Steve Bannon and Navarro and these people, we have evidence that this stuff happened. They're not indicting any of them. Same thing with Trump scandals in Southern District of New York. You have these prosecutors quitting in protest because they refuse to do anything about it. We also have this recent thing with the Hunter Biden laptop and tax scandal. So they're getting back to the Hunter Biden thing. The DOJ, the Department of Justice, is investigating this now. They're opening this up again, which is going to be, another sort of legal thing. And also a huge thing that's just, again, unprecedented. And I'm talking about these things because they're kind of unprecedented. Again, we're kind of normalized by all this stuff now, but none of this is normal. Of the first Black Supreme Court justice, this January 6th, we've never had an insurrection like this before. And now we see the evidence of these things. The House and Senate committee that are investigating these things, actually it's in the House, they're investigating and proving this, but the Department of Justice won't do anything. Again, these other scandals of these lawyers, and they won't press charges. But we have Judge Thomas's wife, Clarence Thomas's wife, who was literally conspiring with the insurrectionists, and Judge Thomas making rules from the bench to protect his wife. This is flat out clear. There was a judgment that went to the Supreme Court that wound up exposing his wife's emails and her emailing, I think it was Mark Meadows, the chief of staff. Every Supreme Court justice said, yeah, we ought to see this stuff. Judge Thomas said, no, we shouldn't, because he knew his wife would be implicated in this. So this is unprecedented. He should recuse himself and not be ruling on these things. So again, and I'm not just talking about this as current events, but I'm talking about this because we have all of this stuff with the courts now that have been going on for a while. And of course, there's a few things that have to do with courts. Of course, Jupiter is one. Jupiter is a big one because Jupiter is the law. Jupiter's about to go into Pisces. So again, we're about to have a big sort of reckoning with the law. Again, one of the things to really foreshadow this Jupiter going into Pisces is this appointment of the first Black woman onto the Supreme Court. I see that as a very positive move. Black women should be represented on the court for sure. And so again, Jupiter going into Pisces is going to hopefully return some justice to the country, because we're sadly lacking in justice. There's some things that just aren't just. So again, Jupiter the last couple years has been in, he was in Capricorn, and he was with Saturn. He was debilitated with Capricorn. This was all since like the COVID times. And then he's been in Aquarius, where again, it's all this kind of relative justice. Well, when he goes into Pisces, I think it's going to restore, hopefully, some judicial accountability, some jurisprudence. And maybe we'll start to see some of this stuff play out. The evidence that's been uncovered. And by the way, there's nothing even controversial about it. They come out and admit it. I mean, Trump comes out and admits that he's tried to that he tried to overturn the election. It's not even what are we even debating? You know, not only him, Steve Bannon came out. They all admit it. Peter Navarro came out and said, here's the play that we tried to run to overturn the election. We wanted Mike Pence to just delay it. Just don't confirm it. You don't have to. And by the way, they had phony electors ready to put in place, but they just wanted to delay it and then turn it into a media circus. That was the plan. Just stonewall, just delay it. Don't certify it. So we can then turn it into a media circus and then have everybody go, well, we don't know what's going on now. That was what Mike Pence was supposed to do. And it's a miracle he didn't do it. But that was their plan. And Peter Navarro, they've come out and admitted it. They had phony electors ready to go. None of it was legal. All of it is illegal and provable. And their Justice Department's doing nothing about it. Like, okay, so this is now on the table that you can stage a coup and totally get away with it. All right, so if that's the case, then last time was just a rehearsal. Now we already know. Now you know you can do it, and nothing will happen. So again, it's very dangerous in this context. And so it's not even debatable. People who think it's a debate, you just gotta. I mean, there's not even debate. This isn't politics. These are just facts in public record at this point. So all of these legal issues that are happening right now. We see this we're coming from a place where Jupiter again was debilitated, and then in Aquarius with it, which is Saturn sign, but he's going to be moving into Pisces. And by the way, so is Venus. So we're going to have a couple months of some very good Jupiterian, Piscean, Venus stuff, because Venus also, and particularly Libra, is the other sign where the Justice Department and courts and all of that is very important. The sign of Libra. Sagittarius and Libra primarily, but Pisces as well because Jupiter is the ruler. So this is why we're seeing, and I think over the next year and a half or so, especially with Ketu going through Libra, it's an opportunity to really focus in on maybe some reforms on the court. And maybe that would maybe even include things like bringing Justice Thomas up and make sure that he recuses himself or is even impeached. Because again, having the wife of a Supreme Court justice acting like this is utterly unprecedented. All of this is. All of it is. All of these things are unprecedented. We become normalized to it, but having an ex-president who has all these scandals, and these aren't, again, this isn't speculative. His businesses did this for years. And so, all right, so now we'll talk about the new moon in Pisces here. And this new moon in Pisces is coming up. This is actually the new moon chart. So we have Sun, Mercury, Moon here. This is on the 30th. If we go forward here, so this is like on the 31st, this would be like tomorrow. And, around 11, what's this? 10:58, around 11 p.m. on Thursday, March 31st. So yeah, tomorrow we have the new moon day, the Amavasya. And so we have this Pisces new moon in Revati Nakshatra. And we have the debilitated we have the debilitated Mercury close by. You can see it's right near there. And we also have the Saturn-Mars exact conjunction, and Saturn is also aspecting up here. Hang on a second. Let me take a drink. So these new moons, when the sun and moon come together like this, shows the beginning of the cycle. And this is the beginning of the Pisces cycle, right? And again, so Pisces has to do with things like spirituality, meditation, growth of all sorts, and especially spiritual growth and the connection to, transcendent teachings. And it's also, this is the beginning of the Navratri, look this up. The Navratri in Chaitra Navratri. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this is the one. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's it. Sorry, I should have looked at this. I was looking at the current events and not looking at my Indian holidays for 2022. April 2nd. Yeah, of course it is. Sorry. I don't like to make a mistake. I was just going to say it, but then I don't like to make mistakes. But yes, this new moon is also the beginning of the Chaitra Navratri, which is the Navratri that happens with, and I'm sorry, Navratri is the Divine Mother celebration that happens at this time of year, and so this is also the beginning of these of this very spiritual time. These 9 nights of the Divine Mother festival also starts on you might as well say April 1st here in the West, and we celebrate the 9 nights of the Divine Mother of the goddess energy. So that usually happens when the new moon is in Pisces, and again, it's a time of spiritual renewal. It's a time, again, it's usually the Navratri after the spring. I don't like to always say that, but I'm pretty sure it's the new moon that happens after the vernal equinox. And so it's very much a time of sort of purity and growth and coinciding with spring and whatnot. The qualities of Pisces, though, of course, are very important. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. It's very much about our higher, expansive, devotional nature. Pisces, again, of course, it's ruled by Jupiter. And so this is a 30-day time from this new moon until the next new moon to really connect with that part of you that is not just of this earth, that's not just, living your karma with other people and whatnot, because you're a transcendent being, not just a being of flesh and a being of the world. So this new moon in Pisces, very much about taking this time to honor your teachers and your gurus and put into practice those things that inspire you. And in this case as well, with this chart, and especially with this strong Saturn aspect onto it, with the strong Saturn aspect, there is a lot of solitude and stillness and introspection and concentration that can really make the experience, that can really make that spiritual development and a guru experience something that's not just emotional, but something that's devotional and something that you can really, focus on and really develop. Saturn is, the planet that brings us the capacity and the desire to concentrate and to commit and to work hard towards something. And so it can feel sort of intense, especially the aspect onto the moon, but that's just so that you can grow up about your feelings and your emotions, and rather than just be stuck in in all the good vibes, you can actually let go of things that are unrealistic. And this is one of the qualities of Pisces at times, is we can get kind of into a sort of escapism and wanting to escape from all of the unpleasant fantasies that we've built up. And we want to just escape into this fantasy world. And Saturn can help to keep you really focused and grounded so that it's not just a sort of fantasy world. Now, Revati Nakshatra is ruled by the shepherd god called Pushan. And it's also, this nakshatra and this deity also brings abundance and wealth, and it's a very gentle and prosperous and auspicious nakshatra as well. It's where you can really develop greater compassion and devotion, where you can protect those that need protection as well. It's a protection nakshatra as well, just like a shepherd that guides the soul and brings the soul home after a long, difficult journey. So it's a good time to be taking a journey. And often when people journey, they need protection. And so if you're taking a journey, this nakshatra is often evoked when we're journeying. And also, but it also can show where we need to be careful not to get lost. And again, we also see this Mercury conjunction is still very close. And miscommunicating, misunderstanding things, and especially getting frustrated and enraged with the Saturn-Mars conjunction and Rahu in Aries. Again, we saw it on display at the Oscars, and that enraged, confusing, rambling display that has blown up in the face of a very famous actor on the night where he should have been the most celebrated. It should have been one of the greatest nights of his personal, maybe the greatest night of his personal career. Instead, it's been the biggest disgrace that people are wondering if he'll ever recover from. Sad to see things like that. But notice, this is also what's called a Kalasarpa yoga, with all the planets in between the nodes, like this. All the planets in between the nodes like this. So it's a cautionary tale, what we've seen, what we saw with Smith. And this debilitated Mercury, boy, you really saw that on display there. But again, that notwithstanding, in your life as well, and the potential to confuse the story, to get the story wrong and get the explanation wrong. If you want to really see the part of it that was a debilitated Mercury and the confused story, and also the insight into the truth, because you can tell a person the truth of a person when you hear what they say. You could really see the truth, even what was happening with Smith, by when he got up and started talking after that Oscar. That's when it was like, man, this is really out there. This is really out there. Crying and love makes you do crazy things, all that stuff. It's like, but this is Mercury story that we're working through. And this is why Pisces is kind of like where we're confused. We have to be careful. Venus is powerful up there, where we're just devotional. Mercury is not. So again, this is where we want to connect with things that are transcendent teachings, and then really concentrate and put them into practice. The Saturn-Mars brings a lot of discipline and a lot of capacity to really concentrate our energy, I should say. The Saturn-Mars, here it is, brings a lot of that capacity to, again, concentrate, have the courage to work through our fears and stresses and be disciplined. And, throughout the month, by the time of the next new moon, Jupiter will be in Pisces. So again, within a couple weeks, Jupiter will move into Pisces. So Jupiter is almost there. So Jupiter is about to move into Pisces, and then Venus is about to also move in there. So this is why I talked about a lot of the things that I did, because I see a lot of this energy in transition right now, and there's a lot of things going on. So rather than just make it about the new moon, a lot of these current events are really being shown. Well, I mean, obviously all of them are, but such interesting collision of events, wars and weird celebrity culture things, definitely a lot of legal stuff with courts and stuff going on, stuff just popping right now. And I should have, probably said, and I'll say here, one of the big things too is this is that Kala Sarpa yoga, when you get all the planets in between the nodes. It's been going on for a while. So again, this is also why when the nodes did change signs, a lot of this starts with the nodes, and Rahu in Aries, Ketu in Libra. It's about me and my strength and my power. And again, not to always come back to the Will Smith thing, but boy, you really saw that a lot too. I'm tired of playing nice. Boom, right? That Rahu in Aries, it's a big driver right now underneath it all. So anyway, I hope this update was helpful. And again, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. And again, I also want people to avail themselves of this Rahu in Aries, Ketu in Libra free web class if you haven't done that yet. A lot of people have, but it's definitely something, it's free. And you want to really understand how these nodes are going to impact you based on your ascendant. It's different for everyone. And so I hope you look into that as well. So I thank you very much, and you have a good night.